disabled. He had PTSD from his time in the U.S. military, and he was polypharmac. So that means he took multiple medications multiple times a day, and he depended on these medications to live. Joe knew I was coming to his house. He knew we were going to have a conversation, but I was warned. Joe, because of his cognitive impairments, may not know who you are when you come to his house. So be aware. And I'm like, okay, well, he's a veteran. What am I getting into here? We found his trailer, and I went up and knocked on the door. I opened the door. I go, hi, I'm Pete. And he goes, you're Pete. You're Pete. You're here to talk to me about Amy. That's right. I was there to talk to him about Amy. He invited me in, and we started having conversations about his life, his experience, and of course about Amy. Joe went on to tell me about how Amy wakes him up in the morning. Amy gives him his medications, and how he really couldn't survive day to day without her. He said, one of my favorite things that Joe said was, Amy keeps me regular. No, seriously, Pete, she keeps me regular. One of these 20 medications I take before 8 a.m. every morning helps me stay regular. I said, okay, Joe, I get it, I understand. But then he went on to tell me a little bit more about Amy. He said, you know, sometimes she's cranky, she's fidgety, she doesn't really work the way that I want her to in my house. And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, the other morning she got me up just fine, but she wouldn't give me my medication. And I said, okay. She wouldn't give you your medication, what do you mean? When at this point it's good to say that Amy is Amy, right? Amy is a medical device designed to help Joe take his medication on a regular basis. It also has, Amy has some other nice features. She wakes Joe up every day. She reminds Joe to order his medication, and she delivers his medication specific to Joe's needs. So Joe's needs are things like certain medications can be taken with certain foods. Certain medications need to be taken on an empty stomach. And then he has multiple medications that can't be taken within a certain time frame of one another. So this device and the way that Amy works, and again, Joe had kind of personified the device as Amy because he saw her as a friend and as a helper. But it was very critical to Joe's life that Amy worked well. So as we frame this conversation and we start talking about Amy and Joe and their relationship, we're talking about product design a little bit. And to have a conversation around product design, I'd like to kind of introduce you all. And some of you may know this if you're in the product design space or if you are in the human factors and user-centered design space. This is the Kano model. Show of hands for those who might know about the Kano model. Awesome, I'm gonna look really smart. So the Kano model goes from delight to disgust, pretty extreme viewpoints there, and then executed well, make sure I'm right, yeah, executed well and executed poorly. And this is how we think about features. So I want to use this as an opportunity to think about the lens in which we understand how products get designed and the right way to design a product. So to begin with, we want to think about usability. When we think about usability, we think about just walking in the doors as saying, can I use it? If I purchase a bike, I would expect that the brakes work, things like that. So as well as we execute usability, we have a very measured and pretty low barrier level of satisfaction. The next point on the chart is usefulness, right? So the more well executed something is, there's a 1-to-1 ratio in how much it delights people that use the product. And then ultimately you have this desirability, which this is really interesting. So this is like something you don't even have to execute that well, but it's really cool. It's kind of that cool feature that people sometimes make their purchasing decision on, which in the medical space is it's really scary, honestly, when you start thinking about desirability as a forward position in how you design your product. The big thing about these features and why contextual inquiry is so important is that they degrade over time. What was once desirable then becomes useful. What was once useful then degrades to something that is just usable. It's the expectation. You guys all know this in your experiences with your expectations, right? Your expectations are driven by your previous experience, which drives your expectations. It's kind of it's a cycle, and it's cyclical, and over time this degrades. So we can't deliver a product and walk away. and expect that it's going to work well forever. We have to go back in and understand the experience. So going back to the company, their mission was clear. Their mission was principle driven. They wanted to positively impact the lives of patients, and understanding and expecting that the experience is much, much bigger than just the fact that they're polypharmac. That's a small portion of their life, if done correctly. They have a whole other side of their life that they want to lead. So how do we do that? How do we make their experience with this device nice and interesting and useful to them so they can live the rest of their life? It's not the center. Probably a silly slide to show you the people in this room. We all know this. These people are in the right business right now because the age of 65 and over and 85 and over is going to double, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, in the next 35 years. So this is a critical need. This isn't something that people are out just having fun with. This is a critical need for us in America. So if you take nothing else away from today, please understand this. If we care about the patients, and we heard the gentleman on the panel talking earlier, and I thought they had some good points, but if we care about patients, understanding their experience matters. This is critical to understand the difference between my understanding of what your experience is and then me learning from you as a patient. What is your context of use? What are your needs? What are your goals? And what are your pain points? How can I take the time to understand those things so I can design my product properly? So the patient experience, what can I get from looking outside in? Not much. It's complex, it's diverse, it's difficult, and I'm just one person. So this takes a little bit of a time investment. It's an upfront investment to understand, how do we do this properly? How do we understand the patient experience in a way that's really going to impact our design? One of the lenses of looking at the patient experience is understanding the patient journey. This is a very small segment of a very targeted journey. Device setup and device use. You guys know journey maps? Okay. Journey maps are mapping the user's journey, again, on satisfaction to dissatisfaction. And understanding the points within that journey where there are pains, if we can solve those, that's an opportunity to change the patient experience. But we don't know those if we're outside looking in. We have to get inside to understand and empathize. So for this project, we were looking at two big buckets: physical ergonomics and UI, medication input, the angle of the screen for the device, the blister pack usability, and the user interface usability. So the blister pack is the delivery mechanism for the pill. What we learned, if you look at the human interface guidelines for any tablet out there, they'll tell you that X is the size for touch. Well, what happens when you have someone with mobility issues in their hands? They are not touching with their finger. They're probably touching with a knuckle. In some cases, they were touching with a foot. We needed a bigger touch target. That's the first thing we learned by being contextually understanding and empathetic to the user's needs. Second thing we learned, the screen angle. Where did they put the device in their house? Many people had it on a kitchen counter, and others had it on a bathroom counter. And then some were in a wheelchair. So the fixed position of a screen didn't work for many of these people, especially the many that we saw rolling up in a wheelchair. So I'm saying, hey, can you look at the screen and tell me what you would do next? More than once it came back, what screen? That told me something. We need to change the screen angle. Medication input. So the blister packs come in the mail. They put them in, they take them out, or they put them in and then they're dispensed at the right time. So the two hypotheses walking in for the way this door mechanism would work on the device was it would open from the top, or open to the top, or would open towards them to the bottom. And this is how we believe the device should be designed. Can I get a show of hands who thought it would open to the top? Like, that's the better design. Open to the bottom, towards me? Okay. I was kind of on the bottom myself, right? Moving it towards the patient. The problem with moving the door towards the patient on the bottom, clothing. They would reach over and catch their arm on the door. The problem with opening the door to the top, it would cover the user interface screen. A retractable garage-like door is what the design ended up being, based upon the context and the usability studies that we did. Had they gone to market with this, they would have been in a world of hurt, not understanding that this was a major need for their users. So we've gathered design insights, physical ergonomics, user interface. What more did we find? 3 things. They actualized their mission. So they believed and were principled in their mission to help the patient experience. So we were able to put that belief into action, because prior to this, their processes were all over the place and they were designing products with good intention but not good process. So valuing the patient insight. What you're seeing here is all the people that are represented in the patient and the product decision cycle for how their product was made. Guess what all these people have? Opinions. I'm a doctor. I'm a nurse. I know. Well, if you all know, who really knows? The patient. The patient really knows what they need. It's our job to interpret their need and then to design a product based upon their problems, needs, and goals. The final thing, again, the patient-centered process. Not only did they have a mission that was driving this, we now had values around the patient insights in general. Now, as we move forward with the product, like we talked about before, you cannot design a product and then just walk away. You have to continually engage your customer, your user, and in this case, the patient, to understand what new features are coming out. If we add a new screen to the interface, is it disrupting their interaction? If we change something on the physical aspect of the device on iteration 2 or 3, maybe we found a way to make the device smaller. We have to go back and re-engage the patient. So I'll leave you with this. It doesn't really matter all these methods that I'm talking about. They do, they're important, they make a difference, but what really matters is having that principle-driven mission, the ability to care about the human experience and to take all these methods when appropriate, at what degree they're appropriate, at the depth that they're appropriate, and apply them to your principle. Thank you.
So we have about 5 minutes for questions. Is that a question? You got the mic? Okay. I'll start with one, just to get the crowd going. I'm curious, you talked about how all the stakeholders are involved and they all have their own set of opinions. How do you really frame up what you learn so that you can make it compelling and convincing so that they're brought around to that patient point of view?
Great question. Yeah, what we want to do, and what you saw up here today, and I was kind of rushing through the slides a little bit, you see a lot of visuals, and these were taken off of videos, and notice that the patients weren't shown in the videos or in the photos. We take a lot of videos and we bring them back into the product team. And so what we're trying to accomplish there is, outside of the sociopaths in the room, it's going to be hard to look at their patient struggling with your device and your design and not want to make changes.
Good. Other questions? Okay. There we go.
How important do you think the anthropomorphization of the device, like calling it Amy, was this something that the patient did, or was this something that you found was a better way for the patient to interact with the device?
Yeah, and I'll tell you right away that these are pseudonyms that I use today because the product's still in design, but that's a great point. I think it was incidental. I think there was a name that was used, and then people really started calling it her and she and personifying the device. And so as part of the inquiry, like the product team had no idea that the patients were really that intense with it. And so when we looked again at this journey in the life cycle, we extended that thinking around some of the medication delivery, and then we trained some of their customer service people to start talking about her and she in ways that kind of mirrored the patient's use of the language.
Good. Okay. Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.